In the last video, we got this F28 gearbox and four-wheel drive transfer box sat in the engine bay on the Astra van. We went through the steering rack clearance and made adjustments to the mountings and the chassis so we could enable this setup to fit inside the engine bay with plenty of ground clearance. Right, it's Boxing Day. Hope you had a good Christmas, everybody. We've been busy for a couple of weeks doing other things, so now we're going to jump back onto the Astra. Now, last video, brush through what we've done already, what you've just seen. This side welded up, that's all welded, just wants cleaning up. Once all of this is out of here, we're not going to use this rack. I've cut and welded this bit of the rack to make it shorter. We're going to use the standard rack from under the GSI, and we're going to adjust the steering column in the van. We've got the brake pipes made up, front and rear. So that's just disappearing down here. We need to clip all these up, make them nice and tidy. Once we get this rack out, and then we need to just slightly notch this a little bit more, get it welded up the same as this one. That's ready for just for facing down and painting. So that's done. So we've noticed we had some clearance issues on the selector. So we've cut the power steering pipes, the steel pipes, we've cut them, and then we're going to nut and olive compression fitting on them, and we're going to mount the reservoir in the back of the van and run some hydraulic lines. We make the hydraulic lines up in-house here, so we're going to make some hydraulic lines which are going to go into the van. We're going to extend the electrics, what will come out of here, down into the van, and run the power steering bottle in there, so we've got all this area to mount turbos and do whatever we need to do. Pretty much the front part of this conversion is about done at this point. We're going to make some stronger mounts for the steering rack to sit on. We've come up with a plan, and we're going to be able to run an anti-roll bar. You'll just see the end of it there, with some short and drop links. Basically the front of it's done at the minute. Now we need to get onto the rear, and here it is. So this is the subframe, and I've bolted the 5 stud hubs onto it, the big block hubs. So I've got the 5 stud wheels just bolted on a couple of bolts, and we set it out just to see how wide, what the track is like on the subframe. And we've got the same wheels on the back of the van, so we know everything's good. And if you look down here, I've picked one reference part on the wheel, which is in the center of the wheel on this inner lip. I'm going to measure there, I'm going to measure it off at the other side, and then compare it to the Cavalier axle. Right, so we've got our reference point on the opposite wheel, and we're going to measure the same place here on the Astra. This is the standard rear beam, and we've got 163.5 centimeters bang on. So we're not going to go right to the end of the wheel. We're just going to pick the same point on each wheel, which is this lip here, and it's bang on 163.5. So we've got the tape on the Cavalier axle. Just get that set in the same place. And as we can see, 163.5, so exactly the same track, which is brilliant news. You wouldn't have thought it, that the Astra Mark IV is the same, what I call a load gauge. That's how wide it is. The same load gauge on this as the Astra van. So that's great news. The load gauge, which is the distance between the two selected points, is the same on the van as it is on this 1989 Cavalier rear subframe. So hopefully we can just get that bolted up, make a few mounts, make a few mounting points, and first of all we need to get this rear axle out of the Astra. What is involved. Right, so we've got the axle underneath the van, and straight away we've got it sat where the original axle mounts were, and it basically is far too far back. You can see it there, it's about 120, 150 mil out. So we're going to have to reposition the axle forward and get it lifted, but we can't do so due to the spare wheel tub. You can see the mount for the diff there, and the spare wheel tub is banging the way. So what we've been doing, we've got all this area cleared out, we've got the ply lining floor out, there's a few more bits to take out of it, but the first thing we need to do is get this cut out of here. We've got the rip saw ready, we've done a small hole with a hole saw to get the blade in, and we're going to cut this hexagonal shape out of here, get that lifted out. Then we should be able to get the engine crane in here and lift the subframe up and hopefully get it bang on, and then we can start fabricating some mounts to get it underneath the van. Right, it's been a minute. It's been about a day and a half since we've cut that floor out, mocking the rear axle, but look at that. Absolutely bang in the middle, and from the side, running nice and true. Nice bit of camber on there. There's no suspension in there yet, so we've just got it sat on the transmission stand onto one of the rear arms. But we've managed to get the subframe where we need it to sit underneath the van, and I tell you what guys, an absolute terror. And I think the problem I've had, to be honest, is this scissor ramp. Obviously I don't have the clearance for a post lift in here, but as much as a godsend this is, I'm having to work in between the scissor and block it so it doesn't come down. And it's been a bit of a nightmare. To get this axle underneath the van so far. There's no rear mount yet. I'm not using this mount. I've just got it chained to this bit of flat bar at the moment, just to hold it in place. I need to fit the differential, but that's drying on the bench over there, and I'll show you in a minute why. Right, so originally we had the subframe. We had this mount in here, and these are all new mounts, by the way. These came from Autodoc from Germany. So we've put new mounts in. We're obviously going to recondition this subframe and make it look pretty, but while we're welding on it and cutting on it, we're not going to bother. So originally we had it bolted in to one of these holes for the original axle mount. We just throw a bolt in and see sort of to find whereabouts we were. And as you could see, we were about 120 mil too far to the back. So with a bit of rough measuring, you know, and trying to use a bit of rope and a bit of string, I don't have a tram gauge, we've managed to find out a location, and we've fabricated these mounts. So we've just got a bit of 10 mil plate, we've welded a 16 mil thread nut in there. We've given it a couple of gussets, and we've welded that to the chassis on both sides. So there's one there and then one on the near side there. These will be perfectly strong enough. So once we've worked that dimension out, we've locked it off with a 16 mil bolt, and you know the original axle bolts for this are only 14 mil, so we've gone up a size, so all should be good there. Now we got to that point and then realised that these eyelets for the rear arms were rubbing into the floor. So we've notched the floor out either side, and we took a fair bit out, which we're going to plate with 2 mil plate, and we're going to make all this tidy and good and re-underseal and shuts everything once the axle's out of the way. We've got a little bit of welding to do on this corner, but pretty much there's a bit of tidying up to do, a bit of welding and some undersealing on either side. You can see the clearance there, it's all nice and good. Got the new brake pipes in that we did before we came up with the four-wheel drive, so they're front to rear, and we just need to sort them out and get them positioned better. I've just moved them out of the way while I've just unclipped them from the chassis while we were welding, and all that will be put back. So yeah, that's pretty much all it's taking at the minute. So we've got these mounts done. We'll make them all look good, obviously. What we need to do next, we need to fabricate something for this rear of the subframe. Obviously, this is the original mounting, which is terrible. It's awful. That's the original Vauxhall mounting, and it bolts to these 4 bolts here. So we're not going to do that. I think we're going to cut these captives off, make it all look nice, and then basically loads of this 10mm flat bar, and it's, you know, it's 10mm thick, really strong. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to run a bit of flat bar from that chassis rail there to that chassis rail there, and I've actually got the rear mount off. This is what I've cut off, that top mount either side. I've got another one there, so I think I'm just going to cut these off, sort of, what would I say, 60mm, 70mm straight across, and I'm going to weld them to this back mount, one either side, and then that flat bar that runs across, I'm just going to throw an M16 bolt in sideways on into them two, and that's going to secure that top mount perfect. Up with plenty of clearance on this subframe. Now it's up a bit tight at the moment because it's on the transmission stand, and I will have a nice bit of clearance, and I might be able to even run a rear anti-roll bar. I did mark these off, these eyelets, because I thought we was going to have to cut them off to get it underneath the van, but obviously we're not. We've got a nice bit of play, there's nothing rubbing, nothing hitting, and we're clear of the rear brake pipes, which we still need to figure out and get some universal flexes for, but all that comes later on. But what I need to do at the minute is get the rear differential in and make sure it lines up with the transfer box on the correct angle to pick up the prop shaft, and then I can fabricate and set these mounts on the rear so I can carry on getting everything else done. So that's the rear mount in. Got the bar welded across chassis leg to chassis leg, front and back. We've repurposed these two mounts, and we've got some 12mm bolts in there. That's welded all the way around either side. That's all good. Do need some longer bolts, but we'll get some 100mm bolts for them. But yeah, that'll be ideal. As you can see, we've got plenty of clearance to the frame. We might have to lower this down a touch when we get the rear diff in, but I did also want to make sure that when the floor pan's in, I can still get around to get to these bolts that hold the rear diff, just in case that has to come down at any point. It will be pretty tight to get up here to get to the bolts, but that's how it was on the Cavalier. But I tell you what, guys, this must be a first. I'm not sure if it is for this subframe to be fitted underneath a Mark IV chassis at all, never mind a van. Let's just take it up. Like I say, she's on the transmission stand. I'm just going to pump it up, and let's have a look at what happens when we lift it. Let's see, let's simulate that wheel inside that wheel arch at ride height, and even there probably is a bit low than what I would normally drive it, but you can see she's got perfect clearance. It's actually better, especially here. If anyone knows a Mark IV van or a Mark IV Astra at all, when you lower a car, a Mark IV, because the spring and damper, this tyre runs into this part here, and you have to start shaving all of this lip off. But as you can see, she's got perfect clearance, so we should be able to go as low as possible. Right, we mentioned the rear diff. I'm giving this a little bit of an overhaul. I've had the back end open just to check inside, and all was good. The oil was very old, but this rear case was leaking, and when I took it off there was no gasket or sealant even evident between this and here, which led me to a bit of concern as to why. Maybe there was a problem inside, a broken diff, but I've checked everything. The diff, the sun gears, the planetaries, everything, the crown wheel, pinion, all look perfect. I've got new oil seals for it, which have come from Autodoc. They're about £2 each, because these are brittle, and when I got it, you could see evidence that this side had been leaking everywhere. So I'm going to put new seals in, new dry shaft seal in that side as well to go in. But I'm just letting this Durka go off. If you haven't used this stuff before, if you're doing any engine work, any oil work whatsoever, do not use anything else but this Durka HT. It's actually a VW preferred sealant, but I use it on everything, and it's absolutely fun. You've got to leave it to go off. Once it's gone off, you're guaranteed to be leak free. So once it's gone off, I'll cut this back, I'll cut the excess off, and then we can get this new seals in there, and we can get this differential painted. But first of all, I'll have it underneath the van just to make sure that everything lines up. This is another job we need to sort, and this is a transfer box locking kit, which one of the guys from Facebook has sorted me out with. It's been an absolute dream to deal with, and we're going to get that fitted. Yes, the transfer box will then be constant 4-wheel drive, so we don't have to put any control in there for the steering. The rest of the garage is untidy as well, but when you're busy, you're busy. Another thing I want to bring across, guys, is in the comments, a lot of guys are saying you should go the VW route, Haldex, you know, and all that sort of thing, the 3.2 V6 gearbox, O2M stuff. But I'm sticking with my guns. I'm sticking with the F28, the transfer box. And yes, this is 1990s, late 1980s technology at best. I understand it's not as good as the new VAG, Haldex, and everything else that goes with it, and the control systems and the management for it. But I want to build a true Vauxhall 4-wheel drive, not a hybrid. I don't want to take the nostalgia away. I had a vision, and I've always wanted a 4-wheel drive, true Vauxhall. Unfortunately, you cannot get a nice Cavalier turbo anymore without spending 20,000-30,000 on it, and probably 10,000 reconditioning it so it's mint on the road. So this is going to, for me, the next best thing. Yeah, and so obviously once we get all the rest of the 4-wheel drive stuff done, we then need to tackle the engine and get that back in. This is a long-term engine for me. Around about 10 years I've had this engine. It's had one different head, sadly, after a valve dropped and destroyed the number 3 piston and the cylinder head, but we've got some new cams for it and everything else. One other thing I want to talk about is this power steering pump. We are going to be keeping power steering, which is a definite for me, but we're going to do something a little bit different with it. We're not going to have the space to mount it here in the engine bay cleanly. We could graft it in, but it's not going to look clean. And we're going to make some modifications, obviously, like I said earlier, on the steering rack, which is going to come up in the next couple of videos. But we've got a lot to do before we get there, and then we can show you what we're going to do with the rack, what we're going to do with the power steering pump, and what we're going to do for fueling, which is a big problem. And then we can get all the welding stuff. I'm just waiting on material coming, waiting on a sheet of steel. It's Christmas time. It's hard to get material at the minute in between Christmas and New Year. So we can get this chopped a little bit more, get that plated, we can get the steering rack job finished, we can get the full underside of what on the chassis rails finished, all the notching welded up. So a great couple of days on the van. We've got a lot of things done and I'm quite happy with how things are turning out. So big bonus, getting the subframe sat in there. Still got quite a bit to do. Like I say, once the steel comes, we'll make a headway on getting everything sealed up and shut and make everything look as stock as possible. Many of you say, why have I welded that great bar in there just to hold that mount? But use what you've got. End of the day, we've got the material in. It's going to be super strong, and pretty much until you're under the van, you're not going to see it. So let's just use up what we've got here. Things cost money, but yeah, as you can agree, we're on the right track. And yeah, it looks pretty decent sat in there. Looks nice and stock, which is the look that we're going for. We don't want wide arches. And let's figure out what we're going to do with the suspension, which we've got in the box over there, which will be on the next video. Thanks guys, thanks for watching, appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe and follow, and I'll see you on the next one. Keep learning, stay humble.